Hi guys, welcome to Soundsphere. Oh no, it's not Comicsphere. Hi guys, welcome to the Comicsphere, and I'm Jay, and today we are with the amazing Dave McKean, chatting about a few things. So, hi Dave, how you doing? How's everything going?
I'm fine, fine. Just sort of trying to get my life together before Christmas, I suppose, like everybody else.
Yeah, it's all sort of getting to that point now where it's all, winding up for Christmas and everyone's panicking a little bit. So.
Me too.
Cool. So I've got a few questions to ask you, but we're going to go straight in with the really deep stuff. So I would love to know, how do you define success?
Wow, yes. I haven't had my lunch yet. Well, it's interesting because I tend to define success by whether the piece of work that I've done or the thing that I'm trying to do has worked in the way that I originally planned.
Mm-hmm.
I don't define it by its commercial success. I don't define it by whether other people like it. Obviously, both of those things are great, but primarily it's whether I'm happy with it. And if it's a piece of work, then I have an idea to start with. I have something that I want to try and do with it, say with it, explore with it. And if by the end of the process I feel like I've done that justice, it won't be perfect, but if I feel like I've actually done that idea justice, then that for me is all I need. That's successful.
Yeah, so it's a personal success, like
it's very much a personal success. Yes, I think there's real problems if you start to hang your own sense of success on other people and their responses. So I think if you can cultivate a really clear idea of what you feel works in your work and what doesn't, and be honest about it. I'm very happy to talk about the things that have failed, that have not worked. I think I always learn more from the stuff that doesn't work than the stuff that does. But in the end, if I'm happy with it, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, that's great. So talking about your work briefly, how did you initially develop your style, and how do you think it's kind of still developing all these years later?
I've always drawn. I can't remember a time when I wasn't drawing things. I did go to art school. I had what I think is quite a common experience going to art school. I went with a very clear idea of what I wanted to do. I wanted to draw comic books and book covers and album covers, and just leave me alone. That's what I want to do. And then I argued with everybody for about a year or two, and finally they won. And I just looked up. I opened my eyes, looked up, and looked out, and there's a whole world of other things out there to explore. And so I put my comic books away and put all those ideas away for a bit, and just had fun and just loosened up and explored and tried lots of things. And that did me so much good for those 2 years. And I came back to comics, but my work was I felt so much richer for that experience of just trying many things. I've never forgotten that lesson, and so I've carried on with that. Really, I like looking out in the world and finding things that are really interesting, whether it's a place or working with particular people or a particular concept or idea or something to really sink my teeth into, and then just work in that world for and really absorb that material for a good period of time and let it mulch down into what my own voice is, and then progress. And by the time I've gone through that particular experience, whether it was getting to know Paul Nash in the First World War for a book called Black Dog, or whether it was directing a film about a couple who were going through grief and dealing with that, once you go through those experiences, it affects everything you do, and your work just becomes richer for it.
Yeah, well, that leads me neatly onto the next question, which was, what's the most important lesson that you've learned about yourself through your work?
Wow, these are really tough ones.
I know, it's a bit tough for a Tuesday, isn't it?
It is. And I was just getting ready for Christmas as well. My mind is elsewhere. I think probably I mean, there are lots of things that you learn along the way, and I'm just writing a book at the moment. I'm putting together a big art book, a retrospective book, and I wanted it to be a bit more than just a bunch of pretty pictures. I wanted it to be a book that is kind of my take on life as a creative person, and hopefully some sort of help for students and young people coming through and looking ahead to where their path might go. And so I have been thinking about these things, and it's very, and there are many things I've learned over the 30 years I've been doing this. I think probably the most important, and maybe the one that I wish I could tell myself, my younger self, was really just to make sure you prioritize your own work. When you head into creative life, generally you end up initially trying to get work, trying to pay the bills, buy food, you know, all that stuff. And so it's very easy to get suddenly in a world of doing other people's work, other people's commissions. And when that goes well, obviously they're paid as well, it's very easy to just lose track of your own work and your own sense of your own voice. And so I think it's really what I always try and say to whenever I talk to students, and it's not often, but when I do, I always try and make sure that they realize just how important it is to prioritize your own work, because that's the stuff that you will look back on as really representing you as a person. It is the stuff that you will learn the most from. And also it's the stuff that if it's good and it gets out there, I guarantee that that is the original material that other people will pick up on and ask you to do something for them along those lines as well. So professionally, it will do you good as well. So there we go. I think it's just really focusing on your personal voice and giving it time in your schedule.
Yeah, I think that's quite important, isn't it? To make sure you don't get caught up with the paid stuff.
And there's a tendency to just keep on slipping your stuff down the list, because other people have real world deadlines and there's money involved and all of that kind of stuff. It's really important not to do that and really just set time aside, and this is my time and I'm just going to devote that time to me.
Yeah, definitely. So you've worked with a lot of writers and things, but also musicians, filmmakers, people like that. How collaborative is your process when a project either comes to you, or do you work with people? Is it something that someone says, oh, we've written an album, do an album cover, or we've and you just listen to the whole thing, or does someone come to you with, say, a script or a graphic novel and then you do it? Do you immerse yourself in it?
They've all been very different. And even within each genre, they've been very different. The album covers have been all over the place. Some people have come to me with very, very strong ideas of what they'd like, and we can talk about it, and I can try and find my own way into their idea and realize it as best as I can. Other people, I've done a lot of work now with Bill Bruford. I'm just doing one for him now. Great drummer with King Crimson and Earthworks and Yes and all those bands. And he is happy for me to do anything. He just records an album, sends me a few tracks and a title, and says, send me the proofs when it's done. And he's very happy with me doing anything. And I've had, almost everything in between. I've had people who are always pretty much happy with the first thing I send them. And I can almost guarantee now that I don't even need to do roughs. I can just do a finished thing. And I've had experiences with other bands that have been after 20 roughs and we're still not there. And it's really, honestly, it gets really tedious and it saps the energy out of it. Yeah. So, I've had all kinds of experiences with that. And in filmmaking, that's a whole other kind of collaboration. Yeah. And I think the first feature film I made, I tried to control it completely. There was a lot of blue screen involved, or green screen involved, which meant that I storyboarded everything so that people could get an idea of what the final image would look like. But in doing that, I think I dictated to the actors far too much of what I wanted. And I don't think they felt particularly involved in the process of setting up the scenes and, being what they are, professional actors. Whereas the second film, I didn't storyboard anything. We just showed up in the morning and we talked it through and we found our way into it. And I asked them how they would do it. and it was much more collaborative. And I think we all got a lot more out of it. And I got better performances, I think. So I think film is all about collaboration, and you either roll with it and make it the best of collaboration. You make something that none of you individually could have done on your own. You could only have done it together, rather than fighting the collaboration all the time, fighting other people's opinions all the time, and insisting on your own. And I think that way just lies frustration and probably a lesser piece of work.
Yeah, and you can create something that is more than the sum of its parts, I think, especially with film. So many creatives having different points of view, and it can become something more than what you thought it could be. I
think that's the point, yes. You're wanting a multiple of everybody, not everybody subtracting from each other. I think with a book, they've all been different again, but the ones that I've really enjoyed, and I've been very lucky that I've worked with a lot of authors who love to be illustrated and love to be able to hand over their text to me and know that they'll get something else. They know that the script was only, somewhere between half and 3/4 of the final book. Whether if it's a graphic novel, if it's a comic, it's only half the project. If it's an illustrated book, well, it's much more than half, but it's still not the final book. They know there will be that final step. And most of the people that I've worked with, in fact, all of them really, from Neil Grant and the early writers that I worked with through Heston Blumenthal and John Cale and Richard Dawkins, all these people have been, in the end, trusting of my image making. I think initially, I just try and do some work to show them and involve them so that they know that I'm not going to make them look stupid and I'm not going to just run off and do it all and they won't be involved. But as soon as I feel that they trust me, then I'm happy to run with it.
Awesome. So on that note, do you think your style influences the kind of creatives that you attract, or vice versa? Do you go to people because you like their style?
I mean, same answer really. It's been everything and both extremes and everything in between. I think because I did a particular book when I was very young called Arkham Asylum, which was very successful and lots of copies were published, and that book got onto the desks of art directors and record companies and everywhere. And it was a very particular kind of book. It was quite a dark, moody story. So that attracted certain kind of band, I got a lot of metal bands and, bands with names like Kill Everything and I don't know, very, very aggressive bands. Not necessarily the music I listen to all the time, but I loved doing all those covers. It was great fun to do. And then there have been other projects. The book with Richard Dawkins came about simply because I read his books. I was a very great admirer of what he was trying to do. And I read in print that he wanted to do a book for young readers about critical thinking as an introduction to critical thinking and science. And I thought that was a wonderful thing to do. But I didn't see it appearing. So I just got my agent to contact his agent and made it happen. So there have been a few instances where I've chased down projects and people.
Yeah, cool. So are there any artists that you look up to? Anyone that inspires you around at the moment?
There are hundreds. There are so many. There are many artists and filmmakers and writers and musicians and illustrators that I love, and there are just too many to list really. When I was in art, I've been looking back for this art book that I'm doing. I've been looking back over my art school stuff, and very apparent there was this great British illustrator called Ralph Steadman, who was a cartoonist and illustrator, but he was an expressionist draftsman. And my love of expressionism and the power of showing not just what something looks like, but how it feels. If you're drawing somebody, not just what their appearance is, but how they feel inside. I think I really was inspired by Ralph Steadman for that. There's an American artist called Jim Dine, whose rough, tough drawings I loved, and I could see that influence in my early work. And then there was a whole school of American illustrators in the 50s and 60s, Bob Peak, Bernie Fuchs. I can see their compositional influence on my work. Right now, for a long time, I've loved Lorenzo Mattotti's comics and illustrations. I think he's the greatest comics artist at the moment, and has ever been, actually. I think he's that good. And then, I mean, I could just go on and on. There's just so many, really.
Yeah, I've always noticed a bit of Francis Bacon in your work as well, especially.
I love Francis Bacon. Yeah, I love Francis Bacon's work. And when we get into the fine arts, you know, there are just so many. I love David Hockney's work. I did a book about Paul Nash and really got into his work. Stanley Spencer. I mean, I could just go on and on. Picasso is the god because not only do I love Picasso's work, the point of why he was the greatest artist of the 20th century was because he continually reinvented himself. Yeah. And there are very few artists who do that, even the great ones. Even Francis Bacon never really did that. He did it once. He ditched his old work and found this style, and then he did that for the rest of his career. But nobody else has so convincingly recreated themselves like Picasso.
Yeah, and Picasso had... people forget he was a brilliant fine artist as well before he became an expressionist too. Like his blue period was just beautiful.
Yes,
and he, broke the rules.
and you know, he was a big influence on all the isms, from surrealism and pointillism and cubism, and he had a voice in all of those, and some of them he invented from scratch. So he really was an extraordinary artist.
Yeah. So is that something that you always try and do as well yourself, always trying to redefine yourself, reinvent?
I would aspire to that, and partly it's simply to keep things fresh. It's to keep your interest going, to keep your energy going. It's very easy to get stuck into a routine of doing work that's been successful and people asking you to do that again. And you just end up doing the same thing again and again. And it is a law of diminishing returns. The energy does flow away. And most people's careers, you can see it happening. Even Francis Bacon, you can see it happening.
Yeah.
His later paintings are still wonderful, but they don't have the raw emotional power of those mid-period paintings when his lover died, committed suicide, and his paintings were a reaction to that. No portrait of Ian Botham could ever be as powerful as those paintings of George Dyer. So yeah, it happens to everybody, and it's a warning lesson. So it's great to be continually trying new things and reinventing yourself.
Yeah, and no one wants to get typecast.
No one wants that.
So moving slightly away from work, what are your passions outside of work?
Again, almost everything. I like traveling, obviously not at the moment. I've enjoyed, traveling mostly Europe, but other places as well. And I've always kept sketchbooks, and I published some of them. And a lot of the things that I've picked up along the way have gone into my work. I love, I'm a big walker at the moment, and I've been bird watching and taking photographs of the birds and getting to know my countryside around where I live in the south of England here. That's wonderful. And then I love films, especially very old films. So I try and watch something every night, and I'm doing a couple of projects based around silent cinema, and so all sorts, really.
Brilliant. But so what is your message to the fans and people who've supported you over the years? Do you have anything good to throw out to them?
Well, I mean, I never really expected to be able to make a living at this, certainly not before I went to art school. I got a hint of it in art school that maybe there would be a chance that I could spend my life not actually working and just having fun and drawing pictures of things. And that would be a great life. I'd love to do that. So I've been incredibly lucky that I have been supported. I'm delighted when people buy my books and contact me in some way or come along to signings and chat to me about them. I have this kind of, it's kind of an unspoken contract really with my readers that I think the only obligation I feel is to keep trying different things and to keep surprising them. And so far, I'm sure I've lost a few along the way, but I'm sure I've gained a few others that have come in instead. So I quite like that that little unspoken contract, and it seems to be working for me at the moment. So thanks to everybody for supporting my work.
Oh, that's brilliant. So could you give any tips for creatives who might be struggling with motivation?
Yeah, and I have heard from a few people, you know, through the Facebook page that is up at the moment, and via Instagram and a couple of other things. Messages get through. I don't really look at social media much, but I do get the messages occasionally that obviously through these last couple of years people have struggled with motivation and depression even, and other things. I completely understand that one. I've certainly got friends who are going through tough times. Depression is a real downward spiral. It's very hard to break it. And the only thing I've ever known that's worked is an upward spiral of creativity, something to take your mind away from your own mind. You have to stop sort of that self-absorbed, depressive way of thinking and look out into other things and be distracted by the act of creating things. It's very hard to do. I can't say it's easy. But the only thing that's worked for me when I've been stuck in the past, and I've been fortunate enough rarely to be stuck, is to really make time to work. Every day, make a schedule. Schedules are important. And it's like a little bargain with yourself, a little rule, like a New Year's resolution. If you make a time every day to make something, and this period, an hour, 2, 3 hours, is absolutely sacrosanct. You can't do anything else. It is in the schedule. It is the same time every day if you can, and you will make something. And you just have to choose a subject that you're interested in, whether it's, you know, drawing the birds that I go out and photograph in the morning, or if you like movies, make a film poster for your favorite film. Do it every day, and slowly, by that repetition and creativity and focusing on something else, it may spark your interest back into doing work, and you can, as I say, get away from that downward spiral and up into a positive creative spiral. As I said, it's not easy, but that's the only thing that's really worked for me. Make a time to focus on work and make something.
And I guess what you're saying is just do anything, just draw.
Initially do anything, because I mean, a common thought is, why should I do this thing and not that thing? And you just get lost in the infinite choice of possibilities. It almost doesn't matter. It's just the act of doing something. Even another good one is just to go out for an hour, take a pad, sit somewhere and draw whatever's in front of you. It doesn't matter. People, trees, birds, cats, shops, doesn't matter. Just the act of drawing and focusing on this other thing can help release you from that, the black dog of depression.
That's fantastic. So my final question is a plug for you, and we'll end on a positive note. Is that you've mentioned a couple of things that you've got in the works. Are there any upcoming projects that you'd like to speak about? Anything that you're excited about that you're happy to just plug?
I have a book that's just come out. It's called Raptor. I'd like to plug that. I was very happy with it. It's a graphic novel. It has 2 stories running in parallel. One of them is set about 100 years ago. It's about a Welsh writer whose wife has died, and he's dealing with that grief. But he feels there's this other realm, and he joins the Circle of the Golden Dawn to try and contact this other realm, spiritual realm. Really, I think he just misses his wife, just wishes he could see his wife again. That's one story. And then the other one is a fantastical story that kind of takes place in this other realm, but it's the realm of his imagination. But that story is actually a little satire about our current political climate and the corrosive nature of money in politics. And I know that sounds like a strange mix, but that is what the book's about. So that's my main one, really. The projects I'm working on at the moment, apart from the book and CD set for Bill Bruford that I mentioned, that I'm afraid they're all rather secret, and they haven't been announced yet, so I can't really say anything about them. But I've spent a lot of time this year illustrating a trilogy of books, and that'll be out next year. I can't tell you what it is, but that'll be out next year. And then doing a bit of film work, and I can't really tell you what that's about either, but it'll all happen next year.
It's all systems go then, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's fantastic stuff. Really exciting as well. And thank you so much for giving the time to have a chat to us today. It's brilliant.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. All the best and have a very Merry Christmas.
Cheers, you too.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.